our promotion of free speech, because I know that you're a big advocate for free speech, because in a free society, it means free speech. Even if you're wrong in what you say, people still should have the right to be able to say it, and then to be corrected by somebody else.
Absolutely.
How do you get new ideas unless you talk about your wrong ideas for someone else to show you where you're going wrong? That's what a free society is all about.
Exactly right. And I've never professed to be right on everything that I've said. I've had an opinion on it, but I've always taken the stance that if somebody can come to me with enough evidence that makes me go, oh, hang on a minute, yeah, your side of the argument makes much more sense than my side. I'm happy to bow down to you here and go, fair play. I was wrong, and I'll change my mind. And I think that's where in our society today, we don't have enough people, enough leaders, enough people in positions of power who are actually prepared to be man enough or woman enough to actually say, yeah, do you know what? I got that one wrong. I'm going to change my mind on that, because I think you're right. A society that can openly debate things is a much better society, and not one that is promoting censorship and silencing of any opinion that goes against the mainstream narrative, the government narrative, or what the BBC and Sly News and all that kind of stuff. All those lot want to try and push agendas on you, and it's just propaganda being spouted at you through the television the whole time. It's not a world that I want to live in, and I think we need to stand up. The more of us need to stand up and fight for free and open debate.
And I would go one step further and say it's even slightly worse than that terrible situation you just painted. And it's slightly worse because we're now actually given our opinions. This is the opinion you must have. So it's not even just shut up, you're wrong. It's shut up, you're wrong, and start preaching this mantra, because this is the opinion you should have.
And that's what I've now come to believe. I've now realised that that's what the television has been used for. It is unfortunately become a brainwashing tool and tells you how to think. It doesn't give you the news. It tells you what to think about subjects. It tells you how to think, and you've got to think the way that the BBC or the government tell you, because let's be honest, they're controlled by the same people.
That's always been the case. TV media has always been there as a type of propaganda, because thousands of years ago we had this. The tribal leader would want his views propagated. There was no discussion because we needed to keep society or keep a tribe harmonious. So you couldn't have 72 different versions. That had to be what the tribal leader said. So I do get it to a certain extent. But what's happened this last 10, 15 years is the internet and social media. So it's a lot harder now to be able to control the narrative, and people can see through it. So that doesn't mean what we used to do has to stop, and it doesn't mean it has to continue. It just means we have to come to a better way of dealing with it in this new age. And I haven't got the answer. I mean, this is going to be a complicated, decades and decades is going to take us to get through this and understand what the new norm is with this technology. It's extremely complicated.
It is extremely complicated, but I think the one thing that has to happen for our society to be better and to move forward is for the current political system to be brought down and a new system put in place that doesn't mean that you've got to be from a certain subset of society to be able to make it to the higher echelons of government, because I have come to believe over the last few years that the people in government are not serving their people. I believe the people in government are only there to serve the people above them and not to do us any favours. And yet we're the ones that elect them, and we're the ones that pay them, which makes it incredibly frustrating.
I think part of the problem there is professional politicians. We used to have miners, we used to have milkmen, we used to have school teachers who would then go into politics. All we have now are people who wake up at 15 years old and go, I'm going to be a politician, then do A-levels with media studies and politics, then go to university. While they're at university studying politics, they then meet an MP or write to an MP and become one of their assistants or researchers, leave university, then do a poorly paid job for an MP, then get a safe seat, then get elected. And it's like, no life experience. I don't understand anything in the real world. It becomes a job. And that job is, I need to shout the loudest that the other people are Nazis and bad. And I need to make sure my party stays in power, even if they do the most horrendous things or incompetent. And it's like, none of this benefits anybody in the country.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head. There's not enough people with proper real life experiences at the highest levels of government that know what it's like to be a normal person. And unfortunately, I think that the system is become so corrupt. The wastage of our taxes is probably the biggest scandal of all time. The amount of taxes that there are now, that we didn't have 50, 60 years ago. And still we just get people going, oh, well, the NHS is still underfunded, and the roads aren't good enough in this country, and the infrastructure is poor. And you think, well, you're getting enough money, you're getting way too much money, and I believe that the government should be a far smaller entity, and I believe that the people will spend money more responsibly than what the government will do, so the taxes should be lower.
I worked for local government for nearly a decade, and I can tell you hand on heart, the incompetence is something you would not. I could tell you stories now.
Oh, I believe.
And it just goes beyond you can possibly imagine the incompetence. I'm not always fully agree with people who think it's complete corruption and they're skimming money off the top. It really is pure incompetence on a mass scale, because all these people who work for government, none of them refer to the money they spend as taxpayers' money. It's always the budget. We used to get special grants when I worked for Manchester Council from the government, and we didn't call it a budget. We used to call it funny money, because where did that money come from? Oh, we don't know. It was some pot from the government, and we called it funny money, and we'd spend it with no idea and no connection to this is taxpayers' money. And what we need to do is every budget in every government department needs to be held accountable, and we need to hold civil servants accountable for every penny they spend. Absolutely. Because at the moment we don't. Yeah. And one of the biggest wastes of money is at the end of March every single year. I don't know if you know this. Obviously the financial budgets for every department, for every project ends at the end of March, and you get your new budget the 1st of April. So if you don't spend all your money by the end of March,
they'll cut your budget for next year.
They cut your budget for next year. So you have an incentive. So if you've got 50 grand left over, rather than saying, look what I've saved this year, they go, oh, we're going to knock 50 grand off your budget next year. So they waste it. I know people who've bought £17,000 coffee machines for the office because they had to get rid of the budget.
Wow.
So even the whole process is just incompetent. None of it works. And then we're talking about taxes. So do you know why we pay income tax?
Go on.
Income tax was a temporary tax introduced for the Napoleonic War. And it was introduced as, this is only to fund this war. And it never went away. And we're looking at 200 years later, we're still paying for the Napoleonic War with income tax.
And how many more taxes have they added on top of that since then? Value added tax,
Everything. They tax everything.
Council tax.
Yeah.
Tax on petrol, tax on, it's just, honestly, it's disgusting what this government do.
I think the role of the Prime Minister and of government should be several things that we need. Defence, which they can't even protect our channel, but defence, there's other things they need to do. But one of the biggest jobs a Prime Minister should be doing is keeping government out of almost everybody else's lives.
Yeah.
Government interferes too much with how we raise our children, what we eat, where we go, what we do. I mean, look what they did over COVID. You can't go here, you can't go there. We need government out of our lives. Otherwise, it beggars the question, are we really a free people when the government can tell us what we can and can't do?
No, we're not a free people. And I think one of the simplest things that kind of I tell people to get them to understand just how corrupt and stupid this government are is that during COVID, they shut gyms and they kept McDonald's open. Now, come on. I mean, this is a virus apparently that only affects you if you're not particularly healthy. So what we're going to do, we're going to shut the gym so you can't be healthy, and we're going to keep McDonald's open so you get even more unhealthy. So come on. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's a joke.